Na, 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 na. Oh, no! Do I have to do this? Come on, anybody else could have done... Fine! Hi, I'm Bubba, and you're listening to the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Who's even on this week anyway? What? John Cody? Well, why didn't you say so? Roll it, Jake! Oh, I love John Cody. It's so great.
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Join Jake and his friends on a journey through pop culture of the past, where they interview professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and so much more. Who will they be chatting with today? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Happy here with us. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm your host, Jake Taffenbaugh. Me today, as always, you all know our co-host, Chris Bixby. How's it going, my friend?
Doing good. Hello, everybody. How are you, Jake?
Doing great as always. Thank you very much, Chris.
Yes, we had a wonderful interview for you folks. Someone who's worked a lot in puppetry, done a lot of wonderful
Oh,
things.
yes.
But I'll let Jake tell you all about it. Jake, tell him who it is.
Yes, thank you very much. So today's guest we have in this episode is a puppeteer, puppet builder, wrangler, designer, writer, and a lot of many things that we'll touch base on this wonderful chat. The amazing John Cody. We'll touch base all of that, like I just said, throughout his career, including his work in the Jim Henson Company, Nickelodeon, Sesame Workshop, the Walt Disney Company, Rockefeller Productions, and No Strings Productions, and so much that so many things got to do throughout, and I'm sure you guys will definitely will have a fun one to watch and listen as for sure. So I'm not gonna waste any of y'all's time. Enjoy our chat with John. See you then. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Today we have with us is the amazing John Cody. Welcome, John. Happy to have you here.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. It's been a long time coming, and I'm thrilled to be here. This is what, do you know when this is going to air?
Not
I'm not
yet,
too
but
sure yet. I mean, I will let you know
Because I
whenever.
think I think this will be my first podcast.
oh wow,
Oh
interesting.
wow!
Uh,
Well, congratulations, John. Well,
Thank
glad for
you.
you, that you finally are part of the club. So glad we got to make this
Yes,
happen.
thank
But
you.
anyway,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, glad to, yeah. A pleasure to have you here. So, to kick things off, we know who you are, but for those who don't, could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is John Cody. I am a puppeteer and writer and puppet builder. I've mostly worked in New York. That's where I'm from, although I'm moving to Los Angeles very soon. And yeah, I've worked on a bunch of stuff, and I've been doing puppets my whole life. I mean, this is just a small collection of things I've worked on. I mean, some of them I made, some of them I bought, one or two of them were gifts. But as a puppet builder, you do often don't get to keep your puppets. The person pays you a good chunk of change to then own the puppet. So
Right.
this is just a small sample of the puppets I've been involved with. I've made many, many, literally hundreds more. Yeah.
That's
So yeah.
crazy. That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. So, what was your childhood like before puppeteering came into play?
Um, I mean, I worked in a mine, in a coal mine, going in the shafts of the coal mine. No, it was a normal childhood. And yeah, I actually don't remember a time before I wanted to be a puppeteer. I like the earliest like written record we have of it is I wrote a letter to Carol Spinney, who you guys all obviously know,
Oh,
our Big Bird and he was Big Bird and Oscar for 50 years. And I wrote this letter. I was in kindergarten, and I was just like, I'm such a big fan. How does Big Bird's eyelids work? How does Barkley work? How does Super Grover fly? Like all very like technical questions, like not
yeah.
questions you would expect from a kid. Um, And so I sent that letter off, and he wrote me this really nice two-page letter back with like illustrations because he was also a cartoonist. And
Yeah, with all his artwork and stuff.
yeah, so he drew like and like pictures like specific to the things I was asking about. Like because Big Bird originally had like googly eyes like Cookie Monster, so then he drew a picture with like Big Bird with funky eyes and stuff. Like that was one of the things I asked about. And yeah, so and I have that still framed on my wall.
That's
And at that
wonderful.
same time there was the A&E biography special. I don't know if you've ever seen that. You have to have seen like clips from it because it's just
I've
sort of
heard of it.
omnipresent.
Yeah.
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 So it was behind the scenes of filming the hurricane episodes where
Right.
Big Bird loses his
Okay.
nest.
Yeah.
And so I mean we watched it when it first aired on A&E. And this is like a program for adults. Like this is not for kids. Um, but like I just watched it and we taped it that night and I just watched it and watched it and watched it again. And then I we wore out the tapes and then my mom called the network A&E to be like get a copy of the VHS. Because I just kept watching and I was just obsessed with it. I mean, like I can almost recite that video like verbatim. And it is also funny to think about like if I was in kindergarten watching that and I knew like Frank Oz and Kevin Clash and Steve Whitmire, I probably knew all those guys before I knew who like Abraham Lincoln was. Um, like, I knew about like Steve Whitmire in the documentary calls it the Henson Punch of like pushing your hand out whenever you
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah, right.
Like I,
Yeah,
I
yeah, love
knew
Steve. Yeah.
yeah, I knew about so I was like learning about that before I knew multiplication, like years before I knew about multiplication. Um, so yeah, so it was always like part of my childhood, and I mean, there were a ton of shows on at that time too with puppets, not just Sesame Street. But I mean, I remember the tail end of Muppets Tonight airing on Disney Channel. I remember
Okay.
Dinosaurs airing on Disney Channel because
Yeah.
that show ended before I was born. And I remember Puzzle Place and
Yeah, yeah. Great
uh,
show.
Bear in the Big Blue House was huge for
Yeah.
me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Between the Lions started when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Zaboomafoo was huge for me.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Um,
there's so many
yeah,
great, great
Zaboomafoo
shows.
is one like I'll still watch. Like that's just a fun. Like that was a real feat of puppetry where like you have this photorealistic puppet and he's just with all these real animals and I loved that because it really like highlights the like tactility of puppets. Like you can't have an animated character as much as I love animation, you can't have an animated character like really interact with like a live animal in the same way. Like they dunk him in water, they'd have
Right.
him rolling around in
Yeah.
mud, they'd
Oh
have him
yeah.
like
Yeah,
get
exactly.
tackled by like a cub or something. Like it
Yeah.
ruled. And so I loved that show. I was a member of the like Krat Brothers mailing list, and
Oh cool.
I get like a little catalog. I don't know, once a month, and or like I guess it was a little kids magazine with like activities and stuff. And then one time, you probably had to send in some money for it, but I got like a hat with like a bear and a pine tree on it that was like a Krat Brothers hat, and I loved it until my cat threw up on it.
Huh.
So.
Oh
And we tried to
Damn.
get it off. I think we were mostly successful, but I don't think I wore that hat much after that. Um, and I mean, what other shows were there at the time? It was just more puppet stuff happening.
Between the
Um,
Lions.
yeah, Between the Lions was big for me, and Between the Lions had like quite a few different sort of styles of puppetry. Like, well, and Bear did too.
Yeah.
Bear had the shadow puppets, but Between the Lions, I mean, they
Right.
had like Artie Smarty Pants, or is it Marty Smarty Pants?
Artie
Ooh,
Smarty
that's
Pants,
embarrassing that I
yeah.
don't
Yeah,
know that.
uh-huh.
Um, and like this like sort of Czech black theater-y puppet sort of thing that look. I mean, doesn't look like any other puppet I've seen, and so. So yeah, I mean, there was just a lot of puppet stuff to be inspired by. I mean, Barney was huge for me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
Right.
of
loved
course.
Barney growing up, and my specific time watching Barney was like when they had not only Barney, but they had the puppets made by Three Design,
Yeah,
like Jim
yeah.
Krupa
Yeah,
and
Miss Edda and Scooter, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So they had Miss
And the
Etta
Booker
Cat, they
T.
had Scooter McNutty, and they had the
Booker T.
Bookworm, Booker T. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Booker T. Bookworm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I mean I always loved that. And that was a show I remember like I never ever thought. I always knew they were puppets. Like I never was like, well, Elmo's real. I always knew it was a puppet, and in part, I think it's just like my family was just like they were honest to me. They were not going to like lie to me about stuff. I remember watching Barney as like a 4-year-old. I had to be at most 4 years old because my grandpa told me this, and he passed away. So I know I was like 3 or 4, and I'm like, how come the kids never sneeze? How come they never like cough or stumble over their words? And he was like, well, they do multiple takes of each line. Like if they mess that up, then they just do another take. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
And then I was like, and it's always such nice weather. And he's like, well, you know that grass is fake. Like it's a set. And I could see some kids like that, like destroying their imagination or something, but I loved it. I loved knowing how all this stuff worked. And I mean that's the kind of stuff I really get inspired by. Even more so than like the actual piece is like finding out how it was made. 'Cause there's still like, I'm not regularly watching Barney as an adult, but like I can still go back and like I can appreciate, I mean, what David Joyner was like doing in that, I don't
Oh
know,
yeah.
70-pound suit
Yeah, and
where
doing
he
the
had to bite down
360s and
and yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
like
all
I can,
that, yeah.
I mean, that's
It's
insane.
crazy, yeah.
Um, so
And he can even do the splits one time, like
really, I see,
yeah.
I don't know if I've seen that, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it was. So I can still like appreciate that behind the scenes making of stuff even now. Um, and yes, but I was eating it up as a child. I also had the Jim Henson The Works book. That
Okay.
that big white like coffee table book. I think it came out around 92, and I was just obsessed with that. I would bring it to like the town pool and just like read it while we just hung out at the pool. I'd bring it everywhere, and so like I just like memorized that book too. I was just so obsessed with how this stuff was made.
Of
And
course.
I think that's one of the things that interested me in puppetry is just like the process is so interesting. It's so
Right.
unlike anything else
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
that
absolutely.
that the process really was so interesting to me. And also for me, puppetry was like I just loved whenever like a cartoon came to life, which is kind of puppets, like this fantasy thing living in our real world. Um, like when I was a kid, I really got obsessed with the Fat Albert movie, where like they all
Yeah.
come, like all the Fat Albert characters like
Yes.
come out of the
Yeah, yeah,
TV.
from the yeah, I love that
Yeah,
movie.
Doris,
Yeah,
Kyla
yeah,
Pratt
where they have
cries
the
on the
fucking
remote. They come out of TV land.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I was just like obsessed with that movie, like to a concerning degree. And it was I had no reason to be as interested in it as I was, but in retrospect, I'm like, oh, this had that same sort of cartoon characters in the real world, fantasy coming to the real world, like thing that I've noticed I was into as a kid. And yeah, and the crazy thing about that is for some reason, you know how like for a lot of movies and stuff, they'll come out with like a novelization of it where it's like you can read it in book form too. Like they just take the screenplay and change it to a book.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
for some reason, they released the novelization to the Fat Albert movie months before the movie came out. Like, so I did like my summer book report on the Fat Albert novelization book months before the movie came out, and like I mean, I just don't understand why they would release a book tying into a movie that won't release for another 3 months. Like it was so strange. And then that wrote a book report about it. It was yeah, that's a little insight into the way my brain worked as a child.
No
Interesting.
worries at all. Yeah, of course. So, I'm kind of curious, where did you got to, train for puppetry?
Yeah, I mean, I was just doing it on my own. I mean, I remember I have a very good memory, and that's not like a thing to brag. It's just I think
Right.
it's just like for some reason, I remember like every moment in childhood. I don't remember the things I say sometimes, but I remember like things that were around me and stuff. Like some people will be like, "Hey, remember when you made that weird joke about that thing?" I'm like, "I don't remember that." But I remember like where I was on this day in kindergarten when I saw this thing. Like for some reason, I don't know why. But so I mean, it was really watching uh that A&E biography documentary on Sesame Street where I really got to first learn how to lip sync because you do have that talking head of Steve talking about the Henson Punch where he's doing this, and you also I think get a point where Frank Oz does the same thing in terms of lip sync. So that's where I first started to learn that lip sync, which was in hindsight really helpful because I mean it's kind of like a language where if you learn it really early, it's much easier to learn than if you're like learning it when you're 20, like how to time this out and make that look pretty and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean it was just being like a huge fan. There were like starting to be like folk started coming out and like those sort of like pretty good quality store puppets that like people who are a little bit older than me didn't have so much. Um, where they had like really movable mouth plates and stuff. So I would always get puppets for my birthday or Christmas or stuff. And so then I just like kept at it. I never thought of it as training, but it certainly like improved my skills. And then as I got older, there were just sort of more opportunities to do like sort of more formal training. Like when I was in high school, I did a like a puppetry master class that John Tartaglia taught.
Oh, cool. Love
And
Johnny,
John.
yeah, he's
yeah, so that was the
wonderful.
first time I met him. It was the first time I met Jake Bazel, first time I met Weston Long, Adam Krutinger, like people who I
Yeah.
Oh
still
yeah.
see to this day and who are like still out in the world doing puppets. Um, so that was like a really formative, I mean, it was only a 2-day thing, but it was really like a very formative, intense thing where that was probably the first time I'd used a monitor uh like a lot. I think I had dabbled in little monitor, but it was just like, it was just more of a pain to like hook up a monitor setup then like because we didn't even have like a HD TV upstairs. So like I don't know, it was just like a bit of a mess to try to practice monitor, but I sort of got the hang of it pretty quickly. The because for anyone out there who doesn't know, when you're doing puppets, at least for American television, they don't like reverse the image like a mirror. Like right now, I'm talking in
Right.
this camera, and Zoom is mirroring my actions, which is like
Yeah,
intuitive
exactly.
because we've spent so much time in front of mirrors. But uh, they they do not flip the image for most American TV shows. So uh, just kind of wrapping your head around that is harder for some people. What helped me was something Johnny said during the master class, where you just kind of forget about everything here. And so I sort of like I almost approach it like a video game, where like I'm not thinking about where my hands are on the controller. I'm just thinking about what's on the screen and like just forgetting about all this baggage here and just focusing on what's going on in the frame. And that helped with learning that. Um, yeah, and then. Once I graduated high school, I went to UConn where I majored in puppetry, or puppet art. I mean, it's the puppet arts program, but I think it's still technically a puppetry major. I don't know. There's some sort of there's specific nomenclature that I'm not entirely sure of, but uh, yeah. So I went to UConn for 4 years and I got my BFA there, and there I learned a lot more different kinds. Is more different? Is that grammatically correct? I don't know. Uh, but you learned like all these different styles, like the sort of Muppet TV puppet style was this much of it. And, I did classes in rod puppetry where even within that class, we learned different kinds of rod puppetry, sort of a Chinese style, Indonesian, wayang golek style, toy theater. So you really experiment in all of these different styles. And, my first love is still this sort of, hand and rod puppetry, but I still took things I learned from those techniques into the hand and rod style because that's one thing is a little pet peeve of mine is when people say my puppets look just like Muppets. So like I always try to subvert things a little bit. Sometimes it depends on I mean it always depends on what the client wants, but I always try to push like I'd love for their eyes to be not white circles with flat black pupils. Like just do something a little bit different. Like this guy here. So this guy here,
Yeah.
like I specifically designed, it's like, okay, he's asymmetrical. Most Muppets are not asymmetrical. He has blue eyes with these, circular pupils with a hole in them. I mean, green tongue, teeth. Most Muppets don't have teeth. So I was just like really trying to experiment with
Oh yeah, that's cool.
design. So
Yeah. And to those who are wondering what that puppet is, that is a Louis, which is a
yes,
60-second schoolhouse.
yes. Hello
Yeah.
there. Nice to, oh, I gotta hold on. I gotta find my light. So, yeah. So I was just a little experiment, and now look at me. I'm here. I'm no longer an experiment. Although I am always a work in progress. Isn't that nice? And so yeah. So I made this guy right after I graduated college, just sort of as like a portfolio example of that I could show to be like, yeah, I can build a nice puppet. And what's fun about him is his fleece is old Binya Binya fleece from Gullah Gullah Island.
Oh my
Oh wow,
gosh.
that's cool.
So
Really? That's cool.
yeah, it was just like they made a ton of Binya Binya fleece because obviously it takes quite a few yards to cover that puppet, and they've had to cover it a few times. Like one time, it got moldy and they had to replace everything. Um,
Yeah.
so there was just extra, and I believe like some of this extra fleece wound up in like the Puppet Kitchen basement, probably from when they were making Johnny and the Sprites. And so I just like used that, and for years I didn't know what it was. It just said GG Frog on it. And I was just like, huh. But it was this great yellow. It hid seams really well. And then it wasn't until years later that I realized, oh, Jim Krupa must have left this at Puppet Kitchen, and the GG stands for Gullah Gullah Island. And yeah, and the other thing, so I've done these videos for Nickelodeon called Pineapple Playhouse with the SpongeBob characters,
Oh
and
yeah, I love
Yes.
the
those.
SpongeBob puppet is
Yeah.
also covered in Binya Binya fleece, at least from like episode 5 on or something.
Huh.
Because we recovered, because it was originally like Nyla fleece and it was a little bit pale and stuff. So then Laura Mans recovered SpongeBob and made a second SpongeBob that's covered in the Binya fleece, in the Binya Binya fleece, and yeah, it's great. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so that's me. I'm gonna go now.
All right. I could see Louis. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So no, I'm kind of curious, what was your first like professional puppet job? Like actually, having a career in puppetry. Like where did it kind of start for you?
So the first job I would have had that paid me in money would have been it was like the summer after my between my junior and senior years of high school. I did a puppet show that I wrote, and I mean, I did everything for it, for the Country Children's Center, which is a local, uh, they mostly do like during the school year, it's like an after school program, but during the summer, they have a camp there, and it's kids ranging from like preschool to fifth or sixth grade. And so I did a puppet show there as well as like a puppet, uh, like building workshop, just like making sock puppets. And so that would
Okay.
have been like my first time actually making money at it, I think. Um, and then yeah, and then I kept getting work there. Like they really liked me, so they hired me on to like help in the after school programs, and then as a counselor there the following summer. And I'd still do puppet stuff there, but obviously there was more than just the puppet stuff.
Nice.
And then that's a good question. The first time, like, what would be the first time I was paid to be on camera? That's a really good question. One of the earliest was probably I was in I was a sophomore in college, and there was this video series that it was me and Austin Costello were the two puppeteers. It was
Awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
We filmed it, like I got the call to be like, "Hey, can you film this thing?" I was like, "Yeah." And then it wound up we were filming a mile away from my parents' house. So it was like a crazy coincidence. And yeah, so it was this like series of videos called Bright Signs Learning.
Yeah. Okay.
There was this puppet called Polly, and he was, he's an okay puppet. And so I did the head, and Austin did like the hands, which was kind of the more difficult job because it was all sign language.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and you can tell by me going like this for sign language. I do not know sign language, and Austin didn't either. He had to learn each thing for each shot.
Gotcha.
Um, and so that was tricky because usually just in terms of bodies, it's nice to be able to do the hand and the head, and then have someone else just
Right.
right hand because then you
Yeah.
can just stand by side. But we had to sit under a table and for hours, and he would like do both hands, so we'd sort of be straddling each other, and it was an interesting shoot because it was just shot in these people's house. I mean, it was a very nice big house, but it was just a house, and it was this crew all from Boston, and so they all talk, they were talking like they're from Boston, and we're gonna get this puppet out in the snow, and we're gonna film it, maybe put it near the fire, um, you know, and speaking of fire, they had me for one shot be right next to an open fireplace. Like I'm lying down on the floor next to this open fireplace, big fire, and if I was me now, I'd just say, we're not gonna do this. We can green screen it or something. I'm not going that close to like a giant open flame.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah,
time,
right.
When the possibility, oh yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
but at the time, I mean, I was what, 19, so I was you know, I was oh man, has it been 10 years? Ugh. I can't believe that. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, and we shot out in the snow. It was a pretty wild shoot, but it was fun, and it's one of the only jobs where they gave me a cash tip at the end of it, uh, which was nice. And I have funny story. I mean, this is a show where I cannot swear. I shouldn't swear, right? Because there's some funny things the Boston crew guys said, but I can't repeat them unless I say a few bad words.
I mean, you're allowed to.
You're
We've had
good.
people swear before, but you know.
Okay, well there's two stories, and you can cut this out if you want to keep this clean. But one story was as soon as we got there, the guy who's kind of funding this whole thing, um, he's like, "Are you the puppeteers?" And we're like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, "Huh, you look so normal. I was expecting the Star Wars Cantina band or something." And there was an expletive in there that I glossed over. But then this story, I cannot gloss over the expletive. There was one thing, we did a lot of these shots where we were making like a big mess and, near a fire or being covered in snow or something. And there was one shot where the director, whose name was Spooky, his name was Spooky Day, his name was Spooky, and he says, "This puppet gets fucked up, we're fucked," which is just an incredible phrase I still think about all the time.
That's crazy. Wow.
Oh, that's
And
great.
but yeah, so that was one of my earliest like paid gigs where I'm like really puppeteering because there was other stuff. I mean, I did some mascot wrangling for like the Penguins of Madagascar and stuff, and
Oh,
that was super fun.
really?
Yeah, we
Wow,
did that,
that's
and that was
cool.
actually that was with Austin too. We were both still in college because we went to college together. He was 2 years older than me, and it was through Carrie Ann DePasqua who worked at this mascot company at the time. And so we did this event at Yankee Stadium for a couple days, and we did an event at the Bronx Zoo, and yeah, just wrangling them. And then a couple years later, it was the Ice Age movies. They're promoting the last Ice Age movie, and so it was
Nice.
Sid the Sloth and
Yeah.
Scrat the Squirrel who is in an astronaut costume
Nice.
because he was
Nice.
in an astronaut costume in that movie for,
Hmm.
I'm sure, a
Right.
good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Um, so of course, since you already touched base a tiny bit on Puppet Kitchen, of
Hmm.
course you got to build puppets for that. What was you can kind of talk about your work in that, what was that like?
Yeah, so that was, I mean, another big part of my training that I sort of glossed over was my internship at Puppet Kitchen. This is the summer after my freshman year of college. And I don't know, I think around March or April, I was like, I should really like have an internship or something to do in the summer. And so I Googled like puppet internship pro I think that's what I did. And Puppet Kitchen came up and I was like, well, they seem legit. So, and they're right in Manhattan. So, I applied and got in. And it was a really, really great experience. I mean, it was my first time doing a lot of stuff, probably like I mean I remember it was my first time using barge cement, which is what puppets are glued together with this really toxic, nasty uh cement that like is so horrible for you. But I wore a respirator and gloves and everything. They taught me the proper protocol, and they had a great spray booth. But yeah, and Puppet Kitchen was great not only for learning all these techniques and like being in a real shop for the first time, but just the amount of people who I met there that I still am good friends with and colleagues with and working with to this day. I mean, Puppet Kitchen would have been the first time I worked with, obviously, Emily DeCola, Michael Schupak, and Eric Wright, who are the founders of Puppet Kitchen. And now
Okay.
Eric has taken Puppet Kitchen and sort of evolved it into its current form that it is today. And so I met them. I mean, my one of my very best friends, Bender O'Shea.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ben,
That was the
yeah,
first
uh-huh.
place I met him, and he used to be an
That's
intern
cool.
there. He interned there a year or two before I did. And what else? I didn't meet her while I was interning there, but Jamie Bresler, I met at Puppet Kitchen for I think like a monitor night or something shortly after I interned there. Um, just people who I still am working with to this day. And there's way more than I mentioned here. It would have been, I mean, the first place I met Jessica Simon, the first place I met. I can't list everyone because I'm gonna eventually I'll leave someone out, and I don't want to be rude. But yeah,
Okay.
so it was great, and that was another thing where, like UConn, we were not just doing Muppet stuff. We did do a Muppet project. Where or not not a capital M Muppet project, but in that style, with these like pet puppets. But we also did a ton of other stuff. I was there for building this giant like Minotaur head that was built off of like a construction helmet. I I mean, the first project was doing this sort of robot character who was for a short film. Um, and then when I left, they were just in the early stages of working on the Very Hungry Caterpillar puppets
Yeah.
for Rockefeller. And so I was I was part of the team that got the ball rolling, and then they did all the real work after I went back to school.
Nice.
But that was so great for so many reasons. That was, I mean, just a huge learning experience, but also just like what a great networking experience and just like I mean not just networking but like friends, right? Like people who I don't just consider like workmates, but people who I care about as friends.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then when years down the line, like I still do stuff for Puppet Kitchen. I've built several things for Puppet Kitchen this year. Um I I built actually this guy right here I built for Puppet Kitchen like right after I graduated college. It was for this project and then it like fell through. So it's like the one instance where I've gotten to keep the puppet that I made.
Oh,
Like
okay.
because the project fell
Hmm.
through. Like I mean it sucks that the project fell through, but I'm glad I get to have a puppet I made.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah,
Um
right.
absolutely.
and yeah, so I've done a lot and yeah, it was just a super great experience.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. And you also kind of like work a tiny bit through that Public Kitchen for the film If. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so I worked a
Which
little
which
yeah.
I love that film, by the way.
Oh,
It's so
great.
beautiful. It was
Yeah,
great.
so I first got offered to work on that um in like this is 2022, so I think I was offered to work on it in like April or May. But I already had this other project lined up, this called New Insights, which I think Jake, you've met the puppets, is that true? the
like
new Insights character. They're like the colorful characters. Oh, maybe they just had the Between the Lines characters.
yeah, it was Cleo and Theo, yeah.
Yeah, okay, but maybe they also had one. Anyway, so
Oh,
it was these.
you know what? You know what? Yeah, but I never get to like talking to them.
Yeah,
But yeah,
well, you
that's
know what I'm
right.
talking
That's
about.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
I
I
didn't
I was
recognize
working
that.
on so I was working on those characters,
That's crazy.
and so I was just like, I mean, I have to make four base puppets, and then there's actually eight characters, so they all have swappable features. So it was just like a big build that I was in charge of. So I was just like, I can't.
Wow.
I would love to work on this project, but I can't. And then in like August, I got a text from Spencer Lott, who he was helping
Yeah.
manage this
Right.
build.
Yeah, I love Spencer.
And he texted me like, "Hey, is there any way you could come in for just like a week to help on this?" And I was like, "Sure." 'Cause I was like, if it's just a week, I think I can somehow squeeze it in because I'd really love to work on a movie. And so went down. I was in Boston at the time, so then I went over to Brooklyn to just start working on this. And they needed to construct a big head that was to scale of the main imaginary friend character, Blue. And so I just like made this pretty quickly, this giant L200 head. And
Yeah.
I think part of the reason they called me is because I had the L200 already, so I didn't have to go shopping for it or anything. L200 is a type of foam for anyone out there, by the way. L200 is a kind of foam that puppeteers use. And so I just had the foam already. So I think that was a big that worked in my favor. So I made this big head. I actually don't know if they ever used it on set because it seems like they kind of decided to mostly use it was Eric Wright from Puppet Kitchen. It was him on set for most days, although Spencer stepped in for a day or two. It was him with like a stick and a happy face at the end of it. For so the actors, the human actors could use that for reference for eyeline and stuff. And it was way more mobile than the thing that I was making.
Right.
Um, but it was still super fun to be a part of it. And then when the movie came out earlier this year,
Oh my
it was
gosh.
we like Eric and Puppet Kitchen like put together this whole event, this whole screening, where like it was kind of a family reunion for Puppet Kitchen, where it was not just people who worked on the movie, but like anyone who sort of contributed to Puppet Kitchen in any sort of way over the past 10 or I guess 15 years. Um, and so it was a super nice event. The one thing is the air conditioning broke during the movie, so it was
Oh
so
wow.
hot.
Oh
So
no.
that was my big takeaway after seeing the movie was like, it's a pretty hot movie. And yeah, but it was a good time.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and so then what's so funny is I mean, almost 2 years later, I get a call from Melissa Creighton at Henson.
Melissa, yeah, she's
Yeah, yeah.
wonderful.
So, and she's like, "Hey, we're making this walk around character," and it was the same character I had built the mock-up head for 2 years prior. They're now building the walk around promotional character costumes. So then I also got to work on that side of things. Um, and I even like, I got to go inside the costume and play around. There's a great picture of me. I don't think I can, well, whatever. So I'm inside the costume. So they put my hat that I always wear, my Jim Bob's hat. They put it on the character, as like a little, like at the end of the project, we all, had our fun. And,
That's
yeah,
funny.
so that was a crazy build because we had to make five of them, I think. And
Oh my
I
gosh.
did this much. Really, the bulk of the work was done by people like Mary Bremer and Jamie Bresler and Bender O'Shea and Jason Weber doing all that dyeing of the fur. So uh, so I worked this much on it, but it was really fun to be a part of that. And there was so much purple fur everywhere.
Oh wow.
I
It
can
was so
imagine.
funny, especially because like there's the subway station like right outside of Henson. Like we went over there and there's just purple fur on the steps. Like people had been like tracking it out. Like no matter how many lint rollers you have, you would just wind up with so much purple fur everywhere. You'd just be tracking out of there, and you'd be like, get in your mouth. Uh, so,
It's crazy.
but it was crazy. But I was it was fun for me because I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna be there and help. I didn't have to be in charge of anything.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it was fun, and yeah, it was fun to be on both sides of that project.
Yeah,
Um, and
right.
yeah.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Nice. So you've also gotten to work for Sesame Street for a few
hmm
projects. How did you first begin working for them, and can you talk about like some of your work with them?
Yeah, so all the Sesame stuff is through the Jim Henson Company, who does all the fabrication for puppets and puppet related props and costumes also. So when I graduated college, I built Louis here,
Yeah.
and
Right.
I also made this guy, although this guy is swappable. So right now he is a trivia show host, and these videos will be coming out soon. Uh, oh, his arm rod.
Uh,
So yes, hi there. My name's Drew Shortstraw. So I made
Oh,
this
that's awesome.
guy, and he just has swappable features. So
Oh, there you
ah
go.
ah ah, where'd you go? Everything's so flat now. Oh. I've lost depth perception. Oh, so yeah, so
and
I
he's
made
normal.
these two puppets afterward as sort of and once I had like a real portfolio put together, I just like kind of sent I cold emailed people. So I cold emailed Henson being like, "Hey, I don't know if you have any work or anything, but here's my portfolio. I just graduated. I sent something to Monkey Boys. I sent something to Puppet
Oh,
Heap.
Monkey Boys, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Puppet
So,
Heap, yeah, yeah.
and
Big
then Henson
fans.
didn't answer my first email. And so, but I realized I sent it on a Friday. Maybe I'll just send another one. So I send another one, and then I hear back from Melissa being like, "Hey, this is great, or your portfolio is great for a kid." She didn't say that, but I understood. And so then I came in for an interview, and they hired me like the November after I graduated college. And so the first project I worked on was this cruise ship show that was directed by John Tartaglia called The Secret Silk. And it's on like the five Princess cruise ships. And
Mm.
so I mostly worked on this nine-headed monster that shows up toward the end of the show. And because it's a giant undertaking, like these giant heads, and then there's this one like giant banner that what the biggest head is part of. And so yeah, so that was mostly what I worked on, but also did little things for Sesame. Like I remember one of my first things I had to go out because I was so low on the totem pole then. Not that I'm high on it now, but uh I had to go to Party City that was down the street and get a bunch of
Oh
New
god.
Year's stuff because they're shooting the New Year's episode of Sesame. This is probably
Yeah.
season 48, 49, somewhere around there. And they have a New Year's episode, and I had to get New Year's supplies that didn't have the year on it because
Okay.
they want the episode to be evergreen.
Ah, okay,
They don't
that's
want
okay.
to,
Okay.
because also actually based on what New Year's this would have been, it would have already been that year by the time the episode airs, or maybe even the following year. So I had to get New Year's decorations for them, and then. Yeah, I would work on Sesame stuff sporadically at Henson. So I'd fluctuate between different projects and sometimes they didn't have anything, so I'd go work somewhere else. And so I did other Princess Cruise shows. I did the Jim Henson inspired silliness show through Henson. And I did some Oompa Loompas for the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory musical. And then my next big Sesame thing that I can think of would have been Oscar. So they were having a really hard time they'd made two new Oscars, and they were just having a hard time getting the fur right because the
Okay.
Oscar that had been used, I mean that fur was is older than I am. Like they were not so to try to match that fur both in color and texture was just a really tough job. So they got me, and I think it took me a week or two. So what I did, there were two Oscars. I would go like square inch by square inch. I would take like alginate, brush it on this chunk of fur, then swirl it, put tinfoil on it, put a clothespin on it, and then put it in the wig dryer. And so I had to do that for these two Oscars like all over.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
took forever. And then they were like, okay, great. And then and then something happened and they threw out all my work anyway. So then,
Wow.
yeah, it was, and you can see over the past like 5 years, they've been working toward incrementally like just trying to get Oscar to look right. And he's looking pretty good now, but like when those two new Oscars first came out, it's just like, well, it's not quite right. So maybe a little paint, maybe a little bit of like zhuzhing here, a little like because it's tough because Oscar was like so matted and just treated differently the other puppets because he it's okay if he
Right.
looks dirty, right? So it's just part of Oscar's look was just sort of a natural aging process that happened. So to try to get that right with the new fur that just behaved differently was really challenging. So I had a small part in trying to get Oscar to look right.
Gotcha. And you also got to participate
Yeah.
in several workshops with Sesame Street as well.
Yeah, so Sesame does these puppeteer workshops where it's to kind of look for new talent, to look for new puppeteers. And uh so I submitted a tape when I was actually it was the tail end of being 17 when I filmed it. And then I was 18 when the workshop actually happened in 2014. And it was that first workshop that I did, I was just so terrified the whole time. I, I feel like I didn't have like my friends, I didn't really know anyone there. Everyone was older than me. Everyone, like, it was just very daunting. So I really like
Gotcha.
didn't have that much fun just because it was just like it felt like the pressure was on. Even though I think a lot of that was like self-imposed. Um, and then they took some people who did that 2014 workshop, they then called back to do a workshop in 2016. And I'm not sure exactly like what their reasoning was there, who got picked to do what. But that next workshop, like I had friends there. It was a smaller group of people, and it was just, and I was a little bit older, a little bit more comfortable in my own skin, and just that one I was able to like have fun and play around a little bit. And yeah, and then I'd like to do another. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but it was just a fun time, and it's fun to mess around with Sesame Muppets, and especially like that first workshop for some reason, one of like it's mostly like these practice puppets, these like whoever characters, like they were never just background Muppets, anything Muppets. But then also Humphrey from the Furry Arms
Yeah.
was just
Okay.
one of the puppets there. So it was just it was funny. Although actually that I just remembered that 2016 workshop they had this puppet that was he was used for a few things. He was used for Baby Bear's cousin Oliver
Right. Okay.
in an episode, and he was really small. And I have like pretty big hands and I have like Popeye forearms. So I like put the puppet on. I was like trying to get in it, and then it like tore the neck a little bit, and I was just like, "Well, I'll just cover that up. And so I did do minor damage to a Muppet while I was doing one of those workshops, but yeah, so those were like a really, I mean, that was also just, yeah, training experiences. Yeah, those workshops are interesting. My understanding is that it was a lot more like a big cattle call audition when Kevin Clash was running things, and this was a little more of a teaching experience, and maybe we'll have an eye out for new talent, which I appreciated that, even though I was still terrified the first time I did it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, of course. What was it like you getting to work on, since we're on the Sesame things, what was it like getting to do a Cookie Monster's, bake sale? What was it like getting to kind of get to work for just for that?
Yeah, so we had just finished the if stuff at Henson, and so then they were like, "Okay, we're done. I'll see ya." Like the project was done, they didn't have any other work. And then I was actually like I had a doctor's appointment, and then like this is a couple days later, and Melissa's like texting me like, "Hey, can you come in because we need people to work on Barkley." And I was like, "Well, I'd love to work on Barkley. I'm currently at the doctor, but I can come in tomorrow." And yeah, they just needed people to repair Barkley. So he had gotten some refurb because he was going to be in the Anne Hathaway Sesame Street movie that Warner Brothers was going to do that they are now no longer doing.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I remember reading
and
about that.
so
Yeah.
so people like I think David Valentine worked on just refurbing sort of the more, and Jim Krupa and Sierra and Sebastiano, I think all were like working on pre-pandemic. They were working on like kind of getting Barkley up and running because he hadn't been used since 2012. And then they somehow had the budget in this Cookie Monsters bake sale thing to finish the refurb of Barkley. So yeah, so I mostly did like aesthetic stuff, just making his tail look nice, just plugging in a bunch of different like furs and things just to make him look beautiful. And and yeah, I mean it was really fantastic to get to work on like a character like that who I had been wanting to see back on the show for so long. And yeah, it was great. And working with Bruce was like he's just like the nicest guy.
Bruce, yeah, he's
He's
Yeah.
awesome.
wonderful. He's the
He's
best.
so great.
Yeah, so he's incredibly nice, and he has a million stories he'll tell you. And
Oh yeah.
so he was great, and
Yeah,
he
oh
was
yeah,
so
yeah, especially all that time you got to chat with us,
yeah.
and all that.
So
So he's
was just
wonderful.
great to work with, and he was so appreciative that Barkley was coming back, and
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
yeah, and he didn't miss a beat. I mean, he gave a great performance, and he was so happy about the tail. Like he was like, I could finally get the tail to wag. I'm like, I don't know if I did anything really, but I'll take the credit. Um, and so yeah, and then it was nice because I did get to go on set and for just like a short time just to and I got to see everything being used, and yeah, so it was really nice to work on that. And then once that was done, I worked on some stuff for season whatever the next season is. Is it 54 or 55? I can't
The
keep
next
track
one
at this
coming
point.
out is the next one coming out is 55.
Okay, then I did work on season 55, which I can't talk about because it's obviously not out yet. But
Yeah.
I worked on
I did read an
some
article. I
props for
think
that.
it'll be out in January, which is different because usually they're out in November, but I read something that'll be out in January.
Yeah, I think they've pushed everything because they don't know where the show is gonna go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like they've also pushed the start of the next season. Like, usually they start filming that in January. I think
Right.
now
Yeah, I
they've
think
pushed
Marty
it.
was telling us about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
yeah,
just a weird liminal time for Sesame Street where like they don't know where we're gonna air the show or who's gonna pay for it.
I know. Yeah.
yeah. I
So
know.
I'm sure it'll
Hopefully it
work
happens
itself
soon.
out eventually, but yeah, it's just
Yeah, me
a
too.
weird time. But I'm excited for the episodes I worked on to air because like I had done all this work like refurbishing the Oscars and doing that New Year's Eve stuff and a bunch of other little stuff for Sesame before, but I never was like in the credits. But the Cookie
Right.
Monsters Bake Sale was finally in the credits.
It was finally that. So
Yeah.
now you can
Yes.
finally. Because I
Yeah.
remember
Exactly.
your post about, yeah, I can finally say I'm actually
Yeah, yeah. I don't
instead of
just
being on
seem
credit
like
all that time.
yeah, I don't seem like an insane person who's just claiming to have worked on Sesame Street. I have proof now. I'm still crazy,
Exactly.
but um but yeah, so that was nice, and yeah, I worked on, yeah, it was some cool stuff I got to work on for season 55. Because it was, yeah, I guess I can't talk about it. Not that there's really spoilers in Sesame Street, but I'll just
Right.
be safe and not talk about it. Uh,
Right.
and yeah, and I also did later that year. What did I do this summer? Oh, not much. Uh, so then later in like the fall, they called me in because they had these shoots for mostly for like social media stuff.
Yeah,
That some of
yeah,
it's
the
come
social
out
media
now.
content. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
right,
like all
exactly.
the holiday stuff, like this, they did like the 12 days of Halloween thing or something, and so I did a bunch of stuff for that, like
Yeah.
pulling all these props
Yeah.
from storage because there's just a million props, and just refurbishing some stuff. I made the chicken nuggets for um when Elmo was just on Chicken Shop Date, which is a YouTube series
Hmm.
and yeah, just like all that fun prop stuff. I mean, it's great. I love working on the Sesame stuff because obviously I care about it so much. And what's fun about pulling props is you get to like just go through Sesame Street history. Like, I found like this bag of worms, these worm puppets that are all dressed as like clowns. And then I looked it up and like, oh, this episode's from the 90s and like and then I'll like be texting like Peter Linz about it and he's like, "Oh, and me and Alice performed those puppets way back when."
Pierre, he's
Yeah.
responsible.
So it's super fun. The only thing that's not fun about pulling all those props is that there's a lot of dust and I just ended up having like an allergy attack by the end of one of the days. So then I would wear a mask and I'd be okay. But yeah, you just find all sorts of cool treasures in there and just crazy things. Like I guess there was an episode where Slimy's mother got pregnant. And so there's like a pregnant Slimy's mother who's like, she has like, she looks like Slimy, except she has a wig and she has a baby bump. And it's so funny. Her name's Eartha, I believe. And
Okay.
yeah, so there's been a lot of Slimy stuff lately, which is fun. I think because Slimy
Yeah,
is
which is
small enough
great.
and they shoot all this stuff in their smaller studio in their offices that I think it's easy to get the Slimy stuff there. Um,
Right.
so
Nice.
so yeah, and then the other big Sesame thing I've worked on is actually for Sesame Place.
Yeah, I forgot to construct the body for Snuffy, right?
Yeah, so
And
we
other
did
things.
walk around. Well, actually, he doesn't walk around. He's actually very much stationary because they only wanted one person to perform Snuffy. So he sits in place, and one person sits inside of it. And so yeah, we had to make a new Snuffy, which no one had done for I don't know 40 years. And there were no patterns for Snuffy because I mean, Snuffy was made by Kermit Love's shop. And this was also in the days, I mean, it was the 70s. No one was keeping track of patterns. No one thought, hey, we're gonna have to make this again someday. So we had to, and we being who worked on it? It was like me, Annie Ozar, David Valentine, Jason Weber, Keely Snook, uh, and did I say Jamie? Anyway, so I want to give people their credit. Um, Jim Krupa, and so we had Snuffy, and then we had that other Snuffy that's like not the one they use on set. They've used it for like if Snuffy has like a Snuffleupagus friend or a relative. So we just had like those two hanging for reference, and I mean, it was a real trial and error process to just try to match the shapes, and I think it turned out pretty well. We also had to use totally different materials than what's inside the real Snuffy. Like the real Snuffy, it's all like rattan and natural fibers and stuff, and so to keep it lightweight for Marty, and we just had to totally rethink that approach because this also had to be just one person and it has to survive like it's outside and it's being manhandled by a Pennsylvanian teenager, so we have to take that into account. So it had to be a little more durable and uh but yeah, it was super cool to work on a Snuffy, and we were all I think a little bit proud that like we did it without any patterns too. Because the only patterns we had were for like a Snuffy for an ice show from like 1980, and they were
Mm.
completely useless. So we were able to make this whole Snuffy totally from scratch with no patterns or instructions or anything.
Yeah,
Nice, nice.
awesome.
So, no, you also got to work on Helpsters, which
Hmm.
also had a lot of the people from Sesame. What was it like working with them on that?
So I weaseled my way into that job, as I have many a job. So I was working on puppets for Winnie the Pooh at the time.
Oh yeah.
And it was like in the shop, it was like me, Ben DeRoche, Laura Mans, Jamie Bresler, Jessica Lawrence. And we were just like in the shop, and Ben gets a text from Jen Barnhart, who was,
Ah,
uh,
Jen, she's
to,
the best.
oh yeah. And so I think it was Tim Lagasse was puppet captain, and she was like deputy puppet captain or something. I don't, or maybe they were co-puppet captains. Anyway,
Right.
so
Okay.
so Jen was reaching out to people because this was the last episode of the second season where there's a big crowd scene. So they just needed extra puppeteers. And
Right.
so Ben gets this text, and I'm like, I'm gonna shoot my shot and see, like, hey Jen, think you could get John Cody in on this? And God bless her, she did. So
Oh.
yeah, so I got to, like, it was like the next day we went to, was it Queensboro Hall or something? I forget where. It was this big building. Maybe, or was it Brooklyn? Whatever, it doesn't matter. So yeah, we're just like, we were given the Helpsters puppets and just sort of sprinkled into the crowd, as like the Helpsters come like accept an award from the mayor or something. And it was like, I mean, it was an easy work day for me. Like, I showed up, I was in a couple shots, and then they gave us free Shake Shack. So I don't know, that was a great day for me. Um, and no, it was fun. 'Cause I mean, Ben, the other extra puppeteers, like, we all got to like hang out a little bit. The puppeteers who were regulars on the show, they had a very long day that day. So they all like came in and started working, and they were just so tired. So I didn't get to talk to them
Right.
too much, but like, it was fun just hanging out. Spencer was one of the extra puppeteers, Jake, Bazel, yeah, I remember I was sandwiched, I think, between John Kennedy and Jake Bazel for one of the shots. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah,
Okay.
it was super fun. Annie Ozar was also there, puppeteering. Yeah, so that was super nice. And I got my name in the credits. Oh, was Tao there? I don't
Might
know.
have been.
Yeah, Tao might have been there. Now it's over 5 years ago, which is crazy. Uh But yeah, so that was fun. I mean, I that was the one day I worked on Helpsters, and that was probably one of the first times I had my name in the credits of something. Because for some reason I just kept getting the shaft when it came to getting my name in the credits on things. So that was nice. Or there just wouldn't be credits for the stuff that I worked on. Um
Right.
so so yeah, so that was super fun, good time, and yeah, how can you complain? Free Shake Shack.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Of
Although I think,
course.
you know what? I think a thing that happened was they got us all Shake Shack, and this is really the most important part of this shoot was the Shake Shack. So I think they got us Shake Shack, but then I don't know, was like the milkshake warm or something? I think I did end up also getting Shake Shack when I went to Grand Central to get the train home. I think I this was a two Shake Shack day. Which, if anyone wants to know the secret to have a body like mine, to be as fit as I am, it's to have Shake Shack twice in one day within a 4 hour time span.
Hmm. Interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. 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 Yes, indeed. Before we can kind of moving on with other things, I just kind of like want to quickly mention about you got about your work in the Jim Henson's inspired silliness.
Hmm.
Can you kind of like talk like briefly about getting to be involved in that?
Yeah, so Jim Henson's Inspired Silliness is a show that's on two Princess Cruise lines. I think they're on like river cruises, so smaller ships. It's a smaller sort of cabaret
Oh.
show, and it's all old bits that Jim did on like the Ed Sullivan Show and stuff like that. So I did the puppets for two segments. One was Music Hath Charms, and the other is I don't know, they're feathers. Well, I forget what the segment was called, but they're singing ostrich feathers. So,
Hmm.
um, so like music hath charms is like basically the original bit is Kermit's playing a piano, a little monster comes, a bigger monster comes, an even bigger monster comes, and then he thinks he's gotten them all away, and then the piano grows eyes, opens a giant mouth that you didn't see coming, and then eats Kermit. And, classic Muppet, you build a few times and then end with someone getting eaten. And so I had to make the man-eating piano. But it
Okay.
didn't have to eat a puppet, it had to eat a person. So it had to be more or less like the size of a piano, which was, I would have preferred it was eating a puppet. Because it was just big. That's the one thing for the longest time at Henson, they just kept putting me on like big stuff, like these big monster heads, Snuffleupagus, uh, this giant piano. It was just for whatever reason they thought, oh, well, John Cody, he's 6 feet tall, he can do big, all the big puppets. Oh, but yeah, so they put me on the piano, and it was, yeah, that was interesting to like try to figure out how to make that work because there was no record of how they did it back then. I only had the video to go by in terms of like, okay, well, these eyes open up and this mouth sort of does this thing. So I had to reference that while also using totally different materials and on a different scale. So it was, I mean, that was another one where it's just like trying to sort of reverse engineer it in a lot of, in a similar vein to like Snuffy, although we didn't even have the original puppet. So it was truly kind of just going by this video and figuring it out. And on a shorter timeline than Snuffy. And then with the feathers, I mean, the feathers were interesting because it has to be built for like a stage show, so they have to sort of be built to last, but feathers just sort of inherently don't want to last.
Yeah.
They just, they pick up little goops and gunks fairly easily. So I sort of came up with a system, and I don't know how, in hindsight, I would have done, things differently now that I'm knowing what I know, but like I came up with a sort of a system where you could just sort of plug in a different feather, and so they'd be able to swap them out, and then it was just sort of like the eyes and the mouth were could stand on their own, and I'm not sure how good that ended up. I haven't seen the puppets since then if they've lasted, but yeah, so it was fun to revisit those classic old bits and make these sort of strange puppets. Uh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So now, so you kind of like talked a little bit, with Mark Gale. Now, can you kind of like talk about you getting to work with not just his, but also Ryan Dillon's project with it, which is called the Idiot
Yeah,
Club.
so
What
so
was that
they
like? Yeah.
I mean so Mark Gale, who I was just a huge fan of, and Ryan Dillon, I was a fan of him, obviously. I mean, but I mostly just knew him as Elmo at the time.
Yeah.
Um but I was just a huge fan of Mark's Frank the Horse character, he would just do silly videos with, and at the time was just this massive puppet that looked heavy as hell with these bulging eyes, and I was just I mean I was just a super fan of this character, so I just like I wrote to Mark, and I wrote this whole like he described it I think as an essay about like what I love about Frank the Horse and just Mark's work in general. So then they were filming, this is my senior year of college, they were filming a pilot, one of a few I think they've shot. And this was called The Idiot Club. And we just shot it at Jewel Street Studios in Brooklyn, where I had also done stuff with No Strings. And yeah, it was a bare bones sort of thing. This like self-funded, simple pilot, but it was super fun getting to work with Mark and Ryan and Frankie, and that was probably the first time I really hung out with Stacy Weingarten, who I've worked with quite a few times and is a good friend and is great to work with. And who else was there? I mean, Andrew Moriarty, Chris Asano, Rob Graydon, yeah. And then Jen Barnhart and Pam Marciero came in for
Pam,
one
yeah,
day.
she's wonderful too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was great to and I think Pam and I shared a car back to Grand Central.
Oh,
So we got
cool.
to it was
Huh.
always, I mean, it's always fun to hang out with them. I mean, Pam's the best. She's, I mean, the
Yeah, of
nicest
course.
person.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, Ryan and Mark, they're great too.
yeah, oh, I mean, everyone yeah, don't get me wrong, everyone was great. But I only shared a car with one person. But I was just there to help. So I mean, I did, PA stuff. I set up the coffee machine. I had to go get a disco ball from someone in Manhattan. But I did also do like assisting work. I think I was one of Guterman's hands once. I was some of the there was some scene where they all like raised their hands up, so they needed everyone to hold the puppet. So, and I was just happy to be there. I just love being on set, and I love working. So I was just very, very happy. And like that these were characters that I had such fondness for was just the icing on top.
Nice,
Icing on the
nice.
cake, icing on top. Not sure what the right phrase is.
So, speaking of working with colleagues, you also got to work on a Cold Sober with another
Hmm.
good friend and previous guest, Hal Bennett.
Yeah.
Well, not a
Yeah.
good friend of mine. I recently took out a restraining order against him. He's been too clingy. He,
Dang it, Hal.
Tao, he always goes up to me. He
Tao,
says, I
what
was
did
in
you
Being Elmo.
do?
He keeps going up to me. He says, I was in Being Elmo. I'm like, yeah, I know, Tao. And he says, oh, you know the part where the horse hits me? Kevin Clash has a horse puppet on his hand and hits me, and then I try on a pig puppet. And I say, Tao, I've seen it. I leave me alone, please. And he just wouldn't stop bothering me, so I did have to get a restraining order against him. Um, no, Tao's a very good friend. I've known him for quite a while, and so I've been helping out on cold sober projects since, well, the first one I would have done was 2019. So cold sober is sort of his variety sketch show. It's sort of, which sounds on paper like the Muppet Show, but it's quite different aesthetically and tonally. It's much stranger. It's a show that would thrive in like a midnight time slot or like even a 2 a.m. time slot. Like it's not for it's not for people in the middle of the day. It's for, I think, mostly for like teenagers of a certain ilk late at night. And yeah, no, it's super weird and in a great way. And so I've just been like helping out. He's totally doing this. I mean, out of his own pocket, like really taking the initiative to make this show happen. So we've shot a pilot, and then we're currently shooting like episode 2. So like I've done, I don't know, maybe 5 segments for Cold Sober in the past few months. Like we're just shooting it piecemeal, wherever we can all sort of fit it in our schedules. But yeah, so the first episode of Cold Sober, I do a security guard. I do one of these repairmen that's fixing a bleeping smoke alarm. I do the puppetry for Gadzooks, but I don't do the voice. That's Anthony White.
Yeah.
So I don't do any voices in that first episode, which is the thing with me. For some reason, all these projects, no one ever wants to let me speak. I think maybe my voice is
Come
like nails on a
on.
chalkboard to some people, but like yeah, for some reason I just keep getting these jobs where like I never speak as myself. I'm either lip syncing or getting dubbed over in another language or something. But yeah, in that first episode of Cold Sober, Tao totally inadvertently gave me all of these non-speaking lines. Even though I'm all over it, you won't actually hear my voice. So I can promise you, in episode 2 of Cold Sober, you will hear my voice. And I don't know if that will
Yay.
get people to watch or turn people off, but it's true. Um, so yeah, so I really enjoy working on them. It's nice to do something that's like totally just out of passion and fun rather than, he's losing money off of it right now. And it's just something that, he feels he needs to do, which is nice to have that. And it's totally like there's no educational curriculum thing, so we really just get to do whatever we want. And it's, puppetry wise, the Muppets are so precise, which is great, but cold sober, the puppets are a little more raggedy, they're a little more loose. So you get to just sort of, it's a little bit more like jazz. If Muppets are classical music, it's a little more like jazz. That maybe not the best analogy, uh but yeah, it's you just get to have a little more fun, be a little more loose.
Gotcha, gotcha. So another project you worked on was Auntie Panda's house. Can you talk a little
hmm
bit about that?
So Auntie Panda's house was through, so I had done some work with No Strings Productions in 2016. And so they are a nonprofit who makes these films that air in like developing countries, like they've been in Haiti, South Sudan, Madagascar, like all these places to teach them about different things in sort of a fun way. But it's serious topics like natural disasters or like hygiene or stuff like that. So I had done some work with them, and then the same sort of group of people, like Heather Ashe and Kathy Mullen and Michael Frith and uh, Michael Kirk-Lane and just people who were involved in No Strings, all then worked on this project, Auntie Panda's House, which is a series of, I think, 30 something videos. They're sort of in the vein of like a Barney, where it's always in the same location and there's like an adult and with a group of kids, except they're all puppets in this case.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it was super fun. I mean, it's like we did 2.5 months of shooting, which was great for me. That was like the longest job I had had until that point, probably. And it was great. I mean, I got to work under, I really worked very closely with Kaylee Clemens and Stacy Weingarten, who were like really taught me so much about puppets and puppet wrangling. And so I did like basically any job you can have on a set, I kind of did at some point in this shoot because I was technically a PA, but then, I had all these puppetry skills, so I'd end up doing a lot of wrangling, and then I'd also end up assisting, particularly Jim Krupa. I would assist him a lot, like anytime he needed a right hand or something, because I've known Jim for a while. So we're very, we're comfortable with each other, and we I think work well together. So and also like Jim Krupa is like so generous. Like he sees this new young person like who's really trying to start their career, and so he loves to give people opportunities and teach them things. Um so yeah, so it was a super super great shoot. Obviously, like being produced by Kathy Mullen, like a total legend in puppetry, and all the characters were designed by Michael Frith, who designed all the Muppets. So it was really great. Like it was a super positive experience, and yeah. So they're I guess I never described like what the show really is. It's a show. I believe the goal was to teach Chinese to French children, which I speak neither
Interesting.
Chinese nor French, but we shot it all in English, but the syllables all matched with what the Chinese was going to be. So it was yeah, it was interesting. So I think it was only for like one private school in Paris. So like I think a couple episodes we did end up just dubbing for fun. We're dubbed, we're like recorded English, but mostly they're like Chinese and being aired in France. I wish everyone could see it. It came out really great. I mean, and it looks great. I mean, shot by Luke Geisbuehler and a set by Laura Brock, who did Johnny and the Sprites in Between Lines and everything. And Luke did Muppets Letters to Santa. So some real heavy hitters. Um, so yeah, it came out great. You can maybe find like a trailer for something of it or something
Yeah, I'm
online,
sure.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really great experience and a great group of puppeteers. I mean, Heather Ashe, Jim Krupa, Kathy Mullen, Jen Barnhart, Pam Arciero, James Godwin, John Kennedy,
James, yeah.
David
James, of
Feldman.
course. Ah,
It
David
was
McFellman,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, he's
And that
wonderful
was my first
too.
time working with David Feldman, and he's great. And I found out
He
he
is.
lives like a couple miles from me. So it was yeah, it was a really great experience. Like I mean, the hours were pretty long, and we shot it in Brooklyn, so I had like a long commute, but I had a great time. And again, I just love like being on set. So uh, I had no complaints.
Nice, nice.
That's great. I know you kind of like talked a little bit about, your involvement in Winnie the Pooh musical earlier,
Hmm.
but of course, you got to build and design and fabricating puppets for that musical too. And of course, also getting to work alongside a little bit with a previous guest too, the great Sebastiano Ricci. So, what was it like getting to, be involved in the musical that's like a huge, like iconic franchise like Winnie the Pooh and
Yeah.
have that adaptation of a musical.
So I was involved with the Winnie the Pooh musical for a while there. So it started, I was taking improv classes at the Upright Citizens Brigade. So I was in like the garment district. I run into Laura Mans, who I knew from working at Henson. Like, oh my goodness, so it's good to see you, blah blah blah. I think she was working on Helpsters stuff at the time. And she was like, "Oh, I'm working on this thing with like Ben and Jamie, and we could use another person." And so this is like just a totally chance thing that I ran into her. I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I could use work. I got nothing going on right now." And so then like, I sign an NDA or stuff because this is years before it was announced. And and then it's Winnie the Pooh, and I'm like, "Oh wow, that's something I grew up with, right?" In fact, I did not plan this. I have a childhood Winnie the Pooh washcloth like puppet here.
Oh
Oh my
wow.
I
gosh,
loved Winnie the Pooh as
wow.
a kid, so
That's great.
yeah.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, I mean, one of the first things I worked on was sewing fur for Pooh, and I think I did Eeyore's mane or his tail or something, and Rabbit. And so I was just kind of we worked in this very small studio in Queens, and yeah, it was a small team then, and then I went on to do in that November we did Paddington Gets in a Jam off Broadway. So then I was doing, which is through the same company, Rockefeller Productions.
Yeah, which you got
So
to puppeteer Paddington too. Yeah.
yeah, so I puppeteered Paddington, and when I wasn't puppeteering Paddington, I was working in the shop on Winnie the Pooh. So it was a very bear heavy time in my life. Um, and so yeah, and then Paddington ended, the pandemic happened, and uh and so then there were a few months off, but then like we kind of just picked it back up. Like I started making woodland creatures from home. I made a frog that hopped, and I did like a dragonfly that sort of start off the show as just sort of atmosphere puppets. And then when it was kind of like, okay, it's still a pandemic, but we can probably do stuff in person, they got a new space in Queens that was bigger. And but Ben, who had been the lead puppet builder, he was about to go leave to do the first season of Fraggle Rock Back to the Rock. So then I became the lead puppet builder, and and at that point, Laura had left, like Jamie had left, like it was just like there was a pandemic in between. Lots of stuff happened between in the past 2 years. So so then I was like, okay, well, we need to build a ton more puppets, these giant puppets. So I need to kind of think of everyone I know who could possibly work on it. So, I mean, I called Matthew Lish, I called Sarah Lafferty, who came on board pretty quickly, and Sebastiano Ricci, I thought of because I had just driven past an Olive Garden, and I had smelled some tomato sauce, so I thought of him, and uh, and that was the first time Seb and I had worked together, I think. So I basically, because he had just also graduated college, so it was like one of his first jobs after graduating. So I gave it to him. He owes his career to me. Um, so everything he's ever done is all because of me. So I brought him in, and yeah, I mean it was a crazy project. It was very ambitious, and these puppets again were huge, and when you're dealing with big puppets, you have to deal with storing them, you have to deal with making all of them takes a long time, and you have to worry about like how do they fit on a person's body, like without killing them, you know? Because like if you have poo on your body in a certain way, in a wrong way, like you can really screw up your back or something. So to to figure all that out was a real challenge, and also like I was doing a lot. I was trying to find all this fabric, and like between, because I think partially because of the pandemic, some of the fabrics we had started with were no longer being made because there were all these manufacturing problems. So
Hmm.
so yeah, it was a real challenge, but like I mean, you can look at the photos of the show. They look great. A lot of the kinks were ironed out, and yeah, it was just cool to be a little very small part of the Winnie the Pooh legacy.
Nice.
Yeah,
Was really great. Oh, and we also
Nice.
made my favorite
that's
thing that we
wonderful.
did was we made like small hand puppet versions of the characters that like would more or less be the scale they were in real life, like toy scale, and they're just like super cute. So we
Uh,
did Pooh, Tigger, Eeyore, and Piglet in that style, and they're the cutest things. And I hope they do more with them. I'd really love to see that.
yeah, yeah,
Because
that'd be great.
they're the puppets are gorgeous. They had them on display in the lobby, of at least
Nice.
during the original run, and they look great. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So now, of course, you also with colleagues back into that part, you got to work with us, Sarah Nolan, on projects, such as performing Maya and Triples, and and Feel Your Best Self, which also on that Feel Your Best Self, you also got to be a puppet captain and puppet builder for that. So what was it kind of like, what was it like getting to do then those aspects, what was it like, getting to be in getting to be involved in those projects with
yeah,
Sarah?
so I mean that's really all of Sarah's doing, because it was also Sarah who recommended me for doing Insights, those puppets too. So
Right.
yeah, so for Treeples, I mean, I was a student at UConn who was well versed in this TV style of puppetry, so it made sense to bring me on board for that. And that was Sarah's MFA project, and so that was it was a fun shoot. I mean, it was tough because we UConn doesn't even have a film program, so just trying to get all the resources to get a really professional product was tough, but it came out great. It looks gorgeous. It's shot really unlike any other puppet stuff. It's very handheld, on location, uh, just a really cool style of filmmaking. Um, and like it has a great score. Like it's really awesome. And then I mean, that was we shot that 2015, I think. And then, yeah, and then Sarah and I worked together a lot. Yeah, so Feel Your Best Self, they approached Sarah about doing because it was actually through the Ballard Institute and Museum of Puppetry at UConn. They teamed up with the like education department or whatever, and they like all these kids during the pandemic had really sort of had these big emotions and stuff and needed coping mechanisms to deal with them. And they thought, I guess, or I don't know who approached who exactly, but they were like, oh, there's a way to use puppets to teach children these coping mechanisms like belly breathing or what are the other ones? Float your boat, all these sort of coping techniques that they had developed, that the educators had developed. So they approached Sarah because everyone kind of recommended her because she had this film background and this puppet background, and it's specifically like children's television background. So they approached her, and so she directed it. I mean, she did so much for that project. She was really the backbone of that project, like actually happening. There was a curriculum, there was stuff in place before she got there, but in terms of execution, I mean, that was really all her. And so yeah, so I she knew I could deliver the goods when it came to making puppets for them. So yeah, I led the puppet build, and it was mostly me doing it by myself. I mean, Heather Ash helped out quite a lot. John Little helped out. Faye Duprat, Honey Goodenough, Katie Treadway. They all helped, but it was me for a lot of it. Um, and uh and yeah, so it was really it was a big build just for me. Like doing how many puppet characters? Five. Well, there were five puppets, but there were seven characters, I think. Because
Nice.
again, we had like some characters had
Okay.
swappable features. So yeah, it was a lot for just me to do, especially because like the way we decided to do the hair and the costumes. Oh, Sarah Lafferty did the costumes. So just the way we, I just want to make them really nice, and so it just took a long time to do all that. Heather Ash did an amazing job with the wigs, and yeah, and then on set, I mean, I was puppet wrangling, and it was just me as puppet wrangler. Like this was not a big budget thing, so I was puppet wrangling, but also puppet captain. So I was overseeing like all of the puppetry in the show and just trying to you know look out for everyone so they can get the best performance they can give the best performance they can give. So I
Nice.
worked with Sedwan and Jamaica and Stoff, and
Jamaica,
Yaniv
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, and
that's
Yaniv
great.
Frank was also a puppeteer on it, and who else puppeteered on it? I mean, Sarah assisted a little bit, Sam Kendall assisted a little bit.
Sam,
Um,
okay,
yeah,
yeah.
so so yeah, so it was a really ambitious shoot, but I think it came out really great in the end, and I mean it's gone places we didn't expect. We just figured, okay, these videos are getting like either dumped online or they're being sent to schools, but now like they're airing on certain PBS stations, and it was yeah, and it's just nice to have a project where like, oh, my fingerprints are all over it. I mean, Sarah's fingerprints are all over it, but yeah, it's a cool feeling to have something like that go out in the world and like make a positive change in children. And then we won or I shouldn't take credit for it, but the show won an award at the Kids Screen Awards, which was really great because like the people at the Kids Screen Awards, I mean, they're executives from Disney and Nickelodeon, and they had all the people from Sesame Workshop there and stuff. And so for our very little show that felt very, small and scrappy, that we worked really hard to make, for that to win an award in front of all of these like really important people was a really amazing feeling. Um, so so yeah, and then it was crazy because Feel Your Best Self was these sort of ethnically ambiguous, multicolored children with yarn hair. And then I rolled from that right into another project that was about like ethnically ambiguous, multicolored children with yarn hair, who are learning about like emotions and temperaments and things, which was new insights. And so my challenge there was, how do I make these characters? I want them to look the as different from the Feel Your Best Self characters as possible. Which the original designs for the Feel Your Best Self characters were not by me; they were by Uni Frank, and I sort of tweaked them. And then, but with new insights, I really got to change how they looked quite a bit, and so they were really distinct from the Feel Your Best Self characters, despite having to fulfill a similar assignment. So yeah, so it was that was another like really ambitious project for me, because now it was four puppets but eight characters because of all the swappable features. And then then you need, oh well, actually they need backpacks for this thing. Okay, we got to make backpacks, and then we got to it just sort of added on. And that was just a really great, the sh it was a really tough build, just because you just never have enough time and stuff goes wrong, and then it's like, oh, I have to actually leave for a week to take care of this thing, and we have to do a photo shoot and stuff. So it was a tough build, but I think it came out really well. I'm really proud of how the puppets look. They don't, in my eyes, they don't really look like Muppets. They have, different sort of proportions, sort of more subtle shapes in the face. Um, and and then they were just performed really well by
Cool.
top level puppeteers. And even though like Feel Your Best Self and New Insights on paper were similar, they came out very differently in the way they were executed. And so yeah, so I get to be proud of both of them in different ways.
Nice.
um
Yeah.
and And yeah, so I don't know what the future holds for either of those projects, but I mean I'd like to do more, especially
Yeah.
if it pays. But yeah, you know, both of those projects had their difficulties in the process of making them, just because both of them like I maybe bit off more than I could chew, or like, it was just a learning experience of like managing a big project. And so, but even though it was tough, I'm still proud of how they turned out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Of course. And I mean, there's so many others that you got to, gotta do, that we've been talking about. Like for example, like with Mr. Crockett, and you got
Mr.
to
Crockett, we got to talk Crockett.
yeah, and like
Um,
Avett Brothers tour
yeah,
and
so those,
MLB's traveling
yeah.
spaceship show, and some of your involvement with the Pitch Explains kind of help out a little bit with Bradley and Kathy, and
Yeah, so for Mr. Crockett, that came out sort of an extension of the If project I had done through Puppet Kitchen, because it had the same stunt coordinator as If. And so he recommended Eric, but Eric couldn't take the job. So then Eric Wright recommended me, and they needed two puppeteers. So I was like, well, the other character is like a big suit, and Ben O'Shea had just done two seasons of Fraggle Rock as the Junior Gorg suit performer. So I'm like, well, let's get him in. And he's
right.
also, I mean, he got me the Winnie the Pooh job and the SpongeBob job. So
Yeah, I love
I
Ben.
owed him several favors. So and he also let me visit
Yes,
Fraggle Rock.
that's
So I
great.
owed him also, but also I knew he would be great in the role. So yeah, we shot that in just outside of Philadelphia. And and for those who don't know, although of course I'm sure you know, Mr. Crockett is a Hulu original movie that is about ostensibly a demonic children's show host. So I played Squawky Bird. Ben was Boogaloo Blue, and then there's a couple other puppet characters who we sort of traded off. There's a demonic chair. There's a clock called Tickles, and yeah, I mean it was just totally unlike anything I had done up till that point, because most of the puppet stuff is for kids, and this one it had the movie starts off and it's like it has the veneer of being for kids, but then it's a really gruesome horror movie. So like, we were working with fake blood, we were like attacking people. I had to work with the coordinator and a stunt woman for this scene where the bird attacks the main character Summer. It was super fun. I felt bad. I didn't like because I didn't want to hurt the stunt performer. Um, so like I like would like pull punches with these bony wings, and she was like, "No, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be hit." So like I like had to attack her. I felt bad about it. But it was a great experience. I think Elvis, who played Mr. Crockett, gives like an amazing performance. Um, and the end of the movie sort of sets up potential for a sequel. So like fingers crossed, I'd love to do more.
Yeah, we'll
Um,
see.
and I think there's plenty of things you could do with those puppet characters, add more puppet characters. Like there's a world of possibilities there. So and apparently, as far as I know, it was like a success on Hulu. Like it was the number one streamed movie for the weekend it came out. So
Oh wow, that's
yeah,
cool.
so I hope we get to make more. It was great. It was a script by Brandon Espy and Carl Reed, and Brandon directed it, and it was just yeah, it was great. I mean, I love movies, and again, I love being on set. So it was just like a super great experience, and yeah, just totally different from anything else I had done.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. What about a little tiny bit with your involvement with the Avett Brothers and the
Yeah.
MLBs? Yeah.
So Avett Brothers, they contacted the Henson Company in 2023 about having puppets built to be sort of their younger doppelgangers, sort of. So they look like fuzzy monster puppets, but they're supposed to be representative of younger versions of the band members Scott Avett, Seth Avett, and Bob Crawford. And so for the during the concerts, we come out about 50 minutes into the show and we do some of their earlier songs. And so it's there are these heavily choreographed numbers that were all choreographed and directed by Paul McGinnis, who's like the king of puppet choreography. And so it's three puppeteers on each puppet because they're full body. So it's a lot of coordination, a lot of like trying to fit all of our bodies in one space. Um, and it's a great group of people, and it's just crazy. Again, that's another one that's just like I just never thought I'd be like touring, playing for stadiums that have like 10,000 people in them. Like I just never saw that coming. But it's a totally unique experience. Like life on the tour bus is a whole thing. Um, and yeah, just like coming out to like a crowd that's like totally on fire already. Like Victor Yared, who's on the project, he keeps saying like
Yeah,
we
Victor.
just
Yeah.
come out to like totally unearned applause. Like like they're just so jazzed to see the Avett Brothers, then these puppets show up and then they go crazy. And it's like, well, we didn't do anything. We've just been hanging out backstage for however long. And so it's been super, super fun and interesting. And you know, there's things about it that like the tour bus life is tough. You're trying to fall asleep on a tour bus, whew, that's rough. I mean, it's something I'll remember for like forever. Like it's so out there and so uh unique, and just like going to parts of the country I never thought I'd go to. And like it was really fun this last show that we did in October. We played St. Paul, and with like the hotel we were staying in was attached to the Mall of America. So like I got to like explore the Mall of America and like go on a roller coaster before then I go to work. And then we also got to go to so Liz Hara, who's worked at Henson for a long time. She's a writer on Sesame Street, and we got to her family all lives in Minneapolis, so we got to like have dinner at her parents' house and have this big great dinner, and it was yeah, it was really great. And then yeah, there's more puppet stuff with the Avets happening, and not just at the concerts. We're doing some filmed stuff. We're doing so be on the lookout for that because we just filmed some stuff with them that is really going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, they showed me like a rough cut of some of the stuff that we shot, and it just looks really fun. So be on the lookout for Avett. That's Avett. Avett Brothers, puppets. So yeah, that's been uh great and weird, and yeah, it's been nice because we were touring with, I mean, it's Paul, Victor, me, and then like Ben and Seb are like two of my closest friends, and then like getting to know people like Joshua Holden, who like I knew beforehand, but now I really like am friends with him, and Dorothy James, who I didn't really know until earlier this year, um, and Spencer Lott and Staff Shear. So it's just like a nice group of people to be hanging out with. Oh, and of course Lars. I can't believe and Lars, who's like I mean I love the Lar McLean. I mean she's just the best. She is a puppeteer and also a puppet wrangler, and she is just like I don't know. We just get along like this. We're birds of a feather, and she's always been so nice to me, and she's such a talented performer and has such an amazing comedic voice, both in terms of her actual voice, but also just like her perspective on things is just so funny. That yeah, getting to tour with her, and like we went to the World of Coke together, we went to the Center for Poetry House together, is it was yeah, she's the best. So it's just a really nice group of people that I get along with, and um, yeah, it's just been super enjoyable.
Nice.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And and the Bob Opedic, commercial they got to do Bob's
Yeah,
discount version, which that was really cool. And getting to do some little bombing with O'Neill, which is as well, which is that's pretty cool. Yeah. Before we're gonna trying to wrap things up soon, can you kind of like talk a little bit about getting into puppeteering Soka and several others and Avatar puppet players.
Oh yeah, so Avatar Puppet Players, and we got to talk about MLB at some point. The Major League Baseball show. But
If you can, but just try and make it brief.
I have to. No, but so Avatar Puppet Players was like that was the brainchild of Garrett Beltis, who's a producer at Nickelodeon, who he was also the one who came up with the SpongeBob puppet stuff that we had done, Pineapple Playhouse and SpongeBob as Told By, and uh, and so it was just it's been great working with Garrett on these puppet things because he's super open to like learning about puppets. He loves puppets and he really loves like a handcrafted look for it. So again, a bit different from Muppets. You know, Muppets exist in our reality, right? If Kermit holds a spoon, it's gonna look like a spoon, whereas like everything is basically handcrafted and for Avatar and for SpongeBob, like there's no green screen, no blue screen, like all the sets are practical, it's all
Right.
hand painted. Yeah, so it's just working on those has been really fun. Um, for the Avatar stuff, like I'm less familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mean, I know enough, but like I got to really do a deep dive into it because I also built props for it. Like I built a sword for Sokka and uh you know so that was really fun to explore that world. But then like the SpongeBob, like doing the SpongeBob stuff, I'm realizing, oh, I like have some of these episodes like memorized. They were just on TV so much as a kid that like, oh, this is like so deeply rooted within me that like I don't like I know exactly what to do for this shot or exactly like what this prop needs to look like or function like. Like I did the magic conch, I did a giant Krabby Patty, like so being able to both fabricate props and perform on Pineapple Playhouse was really special. Because like
Yeah,
it's
to
just
be in
something
part
from
of such
my
a
childhood.
iconic,
Oh
show
yeah.
on Nickelodeon
So,
like
I mean, we
SpongeBob.
did so much iconic stuff. I mean, my favorite thing, the last shoot we did with Pineapple Playhouse was the chocolate selling episode
Oh
where and
yeah,
I got to
classic.
yeah, I got to puppeteer the really old lady in like the wheelchair. So I made the wheelchair,
Ah,
Jamie Bresler made the
yeah.
puppet, and I mean, she made the puppet so well. Like it was just I could get so much character out of it was just carved foam and I could just get so much character out of it. And and I mean that's like one of my favorite puppets I've ever performed because it's just like oh I just loved being like chocolate. I remember when they invented chocolate. And just like that's just like been seared in my brain since like second grade. So to bring that to life was really special.
That's
Um
great.
so yeah, I've loved working on all that Nickelodeon stuff.
That's great. So before we talk about MLB in the last
Hmm.
couple questions here, you also got to build the Chicky Bok Bok puppet.
Yeah,
That is
Yeah.
now, of course, being famously performed by good friend Joey Mazzarino.
I love Joey.
famously.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Yes,
wonderful.
wonderful. So, how did that how did the construction of that puppet kind of come about?
So I was approached by Michael Schupak, who I obviously knew
Yeah,
from
Michael,
Puppet
yeah.
Kitchen, and he was about to move away to Nashville at that time. And, you know, Joey had approached him about doing this chicken character. And so he was like, "Hey John, can you do like can you work on this? I don't necessarily have the time or the space to do most of it." He still did tweaks and things on it, but it was mostly me. And you know, he picked out like the fur or whatever. But um but so yeah, I mean Michael like entrusted me with doing this like uh fairly big job for like a guy he really respects, Joey. And yeah, I made the puppet at home and just did my best. I mean, with all these puppets, like I look back, you know, that was now, geez, 7 years ago, and like I look back and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd done this differently. I wish I'd done this differently. But like, it came out pretty good, and Joey seems to be really happy with it.
Yeah,
Um,
I love how not just how the way like Joey performed Chicky. I mean, he's such a great performer too, but how the look, Chicky.
yeah,
I think it's so
yeah.
cool, and
I mean, and
I love the
Michael.
series that Joey got to do for him.
Yeah.
Which
And Michael
future onwards
Michael
what's
got
gonna
to
happen with
I mean
him.
I believe Michael designed the character. So I'm really working off that
Right,
design which is a really solid foundation. And
absolutely.
So it was yeah, it was just fun. And then I mean I was such a huge I mean I am such a huge fan of Joey's that like to make a puppet
Yeah,
for
yeah,
him
us
was a
too.
real honor. Like in seventh grade, as like a getting to know you sort of thing, and when I first started seventh grade, they did like a little survey of like, well, who's your favorite what's your favorite movie? Who's your favorite actress? And for favorite comedian, I put Joey Mazzarino. Like, because I thought he was so funny on Sesame. Because he's just such
Yes.
a brilliant performer.
Yeah.
That to make a character for him was like a real treat.
Yeah,
Um,
especially with Stinky and Murray and
oh
a lot
yeah,
of the characters got it done over years. And
I
now with
love
Don
Stinky.
Quixote and
Stinky is so good. I want
yeah,
Stinky back so much. He
I
is, I
know.
mean, and all
We'll
the
see what happens.
like a self-pitying loudmouth plant. I mean, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
classic.
oh, and Horatio. You can't forget
Hmm.
about
Yeah,
Horatio.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
of
many.
course.
I mean, he was so funny. He is so funny. But yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so now on to the MLB stuff. Let's talk a little bit about that before we kind of wrap things up here. So what's it like been doing? What has it been like doing those?
yeah.
Yeah, for
So
the
I
traveling spaceship show. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So I've been involved in this new show, which is MLB, Major League Baseball's traveling spaceship show, and they just wanted to, they just wanted a puppeteer who like basically has the body of a baseball player, like just as athletic, just as cool. So they got me. And Yeah, so I know I auditioned for it. I actually got it through Eric Wright, Puppet Kitchen. Again, like these have been lifelong connections I've made since like Puppet Kitchen and all those days. So I mean, it's like the one job that's been pretty straightforward as to how I got it. Like Eric recommended me to audition. He had a list of people who he wanted to audition. I auditioned. I did several rounds, and I got the part. And that's kind of the first time it's been that straightforward of a path. It's usually either like someone recommending me or some circuitous route, or like I have to replace someone, like Ben leaving to do Fraggle Rock. Like it, so it was a pretty straightforward deal. And then, it's funny because in terms of puppeteers, like I've been to baseball games, multiple baseball games, and I know like I could name several baseball players. So compared to other puppeteers, like I'm a baseball expert. But then when I got to the MLB network building, everyone there is like an encyclopedia of baseball. So like they're just throwing out names and terms. I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm happy to be there. And it's really great. Michael Furno, who this is his uh, pet project. I mean, he loves puppets so much. He loves the Muppets. He loves Jim Henson. So he's super enthused and super open to my thoughts on things
That's
and what I
great.
can do with this character. And yeah, so it's an alien character that I play in this show named Jax, who
Right.
was designed by Guy Gilchrist and built by Uzi Works.
Yeah, yeah. He's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, um, so it's me and Sarah Tiana, who's a super funny comedian. She's the human host, and I'm the pilot of this traveling spaceship. And Bob
Yeah.
Costas is the voice of the computer on the ship. And the premise is that we go to famous baseball games in history and sort of comment on them and get into wacky antics. So yeah, we've shot one so far. The plan is to do more. And I'm just like kind of along for the ride. Like whatever they have planned, I'm game for. And I got to meet like the commissioner of the MLB, who I'm told is important. And there's a lot of plans for this character going forward. So I think once 2025 rolls along, you'll see a lot more Jacks coming at you.
Nice.
Nice, wonderful. Yeah, looking forward to more of that, and as well as whenever next season of Sesame comes. So, since you already talked about your work and that, and whenever that's going to be out in the world soon. But yeah. Looking forward to coming up next in store. So, soon about to wrap things up. very shortly now. Last question that Chris is about to ask, I usually ask to every guest at the very end. Go ahead, Chris.
So this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or what does nostalgia mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, nostalgia to me is sort of a double-edged sword where it's nice to look back on things, but there's a sadness to it and a happiness to it, right? It's bittersweet to because nostalgia is just like a feeling, or the way I feel about nostalgia is like it's a feeling of like looking in the past, remembering a happy time, but you do end up like a little bit like, I wish I could go back there, and of course you never can, but. But yeah, I think it's nice, but I'm conflicted about it, right? Because to be nostalgic is it's almost like a yearning for the past, in my case at least. So it's
Right.
interesting. And again, like going back to like I have a very good memory about things, so I remember things so vividly, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could capture that feeling from the past again. But you can't, so you have to move on. So I think I just try to take the things I'm nostalgic for and put mash them all up in my brain and create new stuff that excites me is sort of the way I approach that.
Gotcha.
So like I like so this beaver guy right here is for a TV show pitch that I've been working on. This is he's built by Laura Mans, and he's for a pitch that's very rooted in my nostalgia for Zaboomafoo, but I'm sort of taking ideas from that and from other shows I love, like Bear in the Big Blue House, and sort of mashing it in my brain and to try to create something
Right, your
new.
creations. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, that's wonderful.
So I think that's sort of the best way to honor that feeling of nostalgia, and uh, yeah, that's my answer. That's as best as I can do.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's
Um,
great.
yeah,
Nice. Agree
but
with
but we
Sam.
never
Thank you
here's
so.
here's something we never talked about. I've met the Wiggles.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, you did.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying. I'm just saying,
which that's wonderful.
big moment for me. I've met the Wiggles.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, both me and Chris are like huge like Ruggles
Was
Yeah.
this
fans
because
for
of
as
the
long as
Sesame
we can
Street thing?
remember.
No, this was totally independent of that. Before I worked at Sesame, it's funny, like I for some reason I got like just the YouTube algorithm kept feeding Wiggles stuff to me, and then I was just like, I'm really into this. Like they're really good performers. Like, and again, I appreciate it in a different way now than I when I was a kid, and where like now I'm like, oh, they're
Whereas it
really
was
like.
usual for guys, now it's like eight of them,
Well,
and
yeah, I mean, there's that, but also like I appreciate it in a different way of like, well, now I really kind of sort of respect them as performers who really like respect their audience of kids and stuff, and like I
can
sort
more
of look,
diverse. Yeah,
yeah, and yeah, so I got to meet Anthony and Simon and Emma and Lockie,
yeah.
because.
On one from one of their like tours or
Yeah,
something.
so they were
Okay,
touring the US, and I basically like wrote
gotcha.
this letter being like, "Hey, I loved the Wiggles as a kid. I never got to go to a concert, and I like really respect them as performers. Like, is there a way I could meet them?" And amazingly, there was. So I got to meet them, and I talked to Anthony about. I mostly talked to Anthony, and it was about mostly the puppets that they used to have, those really crazy, creepy
Yeah, yeah.
puppets
The
that
Wiggles
they.
puppets, like in the Yummy Yummy and
Yeah,
the
like those
yeah,
crazy looking
yeah.
puppets. And so we
Yeah,
talked about that, and Anthony was like, "Yeah, if you Google like scariest puppet ever, you get the Wiggles puppets showing
that's
up."
crazy. And
Um
I think they still have the I know they still have I know especially I know I actually got to went their HQ and remember like he posted on his Instagram
he was
like
in the depths of Hot Potato Studio.
yeah, and he has like how got like and the Jeff puppet still
Yeah.
exists, which you can tell
Barely.
it's not in good shape
Yeah,
because it
like
was
the
like back
latex is deteriorated, the
90s,
resin in
but
the eyes is all yellowed.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah.
the Wiggles were not there when he was there. He did not meet them. Only I did. So I'm gonna hold that over him forever. Although he did get me a free t-shirt when he went there, so I guess I should thank him for that, as much as it pains me to thank him for anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, thank you so much for taking time to do this. Glad we were finally able to make it happen, and it was an absolute blast.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great chat with you too, John. And look for what's next in store. I'm glad we finally got to break the curse
We
and
did it.
finally chat with you. Yes.
Yes, a lot of people have
And
suggested
yeah,
you, and you
everyone
yourself
loves you,
have been
John.
very excited about being on the
And
show.
both me and Chris loves you too.
Oh, thank you,
Yes,
Jake.
it was
Love
a
you
lot
too.
of fun. A
Yeah,
lot
of
of
course.
fun. Well, enjoy the
Yeah,
rest of your day. We'll let you know when
sure,
this goes up.
indeed.
All right, thank you so much.
All right,
Of
have a
course.
very happy
Yeah,
holidays.
Merry
Yeah, you
Christmas to you
too.
too, John. All right, thanks
Yeah.
again for the
Bye.
fun. Bye. Take care.
And it's goodbye from us as well. We absolutely enjoy our time speaking with the wonderful John Cody. Links to his website and social media will be in the description down below for anyone who wants to connect with him or check out his great puppet work, writing work, and other things as well.
And lots of other things that we've been talking about and you want to know more about. Like, she's done so much, so all that, description down below. You all know that.
Yes, so it's goodbye from us as well. Keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews coming your way. As always, Jake, what do we say?
Yes. Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode. Be sure to follow Jake and the Happy Nostalgia team on social media, check out our website, and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.